Hello, and welcome to Spilling the Tea, the podcast where we dive deep into the cutting edge of confidential computing and AI. I'm Lisa Loud from Secret Network, and I'll be your host today. So, this isn't your typical podcast. Here, we try to get deep into the real tech that's shaping the next wave of Web3. We talk about zero knowledge proofs, trusted execution environments, and the frontier of privacy preserving machine learning. And we're going a little further today into quantum proof cryptography. So I'm really excited to introduce today's guest. He goes by Hermes, the messenger god who moved between worlds and kept secrets. It's a pretty fitting alias for Connor. Connor Holloway grew up in British Columbia, got into crypto in 2017 the way the best people do, not as a trader, but because the theory of it fascinated him. By 2020, he was in as a contributing developer. But then around 2023, he looked at where the culture was heading, didn't like what he saw. So he did something most people don't have the discipline to do. He walked away for a year. No crypto, just cryptography. That's when he found post-quantum cryptography, which is all about securing communications, not just against today's threats, but against computers that don't even fully exist yet. And that ended up pulling him back in, and that became Cryptic Technologies. So welcome, Connor. Thank you for being here. You're a builder, not a trader, I hear.
No, I was never that into trading, but the technology has always been very cool here in crypto, and arguably it's the coolest it has ever been right now. It's a great time to be building right now, as opposed to trading. So,
Mm-hmm.
pretty glad about
True.
that.
That's true. My journey actually mirrors yours. I'm from the other side of Canada, grew up in Montreal, and I'm still in Montreal. And I actually also got into crypto in 2016, 2017. I was working at PayPal and I tried to get them into crypto. They weren't having any of that back then. So I left and started working as an executive in the crypto space. So yeah, we have a lot of parallels in our backgrounds.
It's funny, the more people I meet in crypto, they usually kind of got in either around that 2016, 2017, or 2020, 2021. Usually coincided with bull market, or a bull market that had just ended, and builders were coming in. It's funny how many parallels you can find with people around here on their journey of getting involved
Yeah,
and becoming
right.
full-time crypto people.
So you're saying there aren't many people who will say, I got in 2026.
You know, I think it's going to be an incredibly interesting year. I think everybody can see there's a lot of changes happening to the landscape as the industry matures. A lot of people are saying, this is truly the year you can say that you're not early to crypto anymore. It's already started off in a very interesting way, and it's only March. And I think it's going to get more interesting here, but it's a guessing game to say if this will be one of those very transformative years. Um,
Mhm.
I'm eager to really see how it plays out. But it has been a bit more of an interesting year, I think, than most were expecting. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah,
it'll
I
be.
think where it's going is the post quantum is really interesting right now as people worry that their Bitcoin wallets might eventually be open to anyone. And there's other things. And then real world assets is really interesting because I think we're maturing as an industry into being the rails behind things that are happening rather than the point, if you know what I mean.
There are a couple of very interesting developments. Post quantum is definitely one of those. As for a lot of people, they're like, oh well, maybe it'll happen in 10 years, 20. The average consumer will think that, but every builder doesn't really see 10 years as a long time, because building new solutions, it does take a while. Um,
Right.
I think that fear is not realized on the consumer level, but on the builder level, I think we all realize going, hey, 10 years is just not that long of a time. And if we
Yeah.
aren't ready for it, it could be a disaster. And, also with artificial intelligence really picking up both in its capabilities and just where, capital allocation is going, there's a lot of very real changes happening in the technology sector right now that are having implications on our industry. That, as I said, it's a very interesting year, and it's very hard to predict where things will go in this next 5 to 10 years for crypto, with all of these very large technological innovations that are just having very, very deep impacts to the industry we know and love.
Amazing. Yeah. So you do think 10 to 15 years is realistic?
I do. I never underestimate how fast technology can scale.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, it's like artificial intelligence. When ChatGPT came out, in whatever that was, 2022, something like that, a couple of years ago now, everyone was like, okay, it's a chat bot. There's going to be problems scaling. It's not really going to work.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I think we've seen
Cost.
already in just, yeah, exactly. And in just 3 years, we've seen how that's been wrong. And I think quantum computing's going to do the same thing, where there are a couple, AI, quantum computing, machine learning, there's wherever there's being capital allocated from the biggest companies on earth, I think it would be unwise to underestimate how fast we can scale that technology. So,
That's a good
yeah.
point. Yeah. So let's go back to basics. Everyone in this space uses the word privacy like it's a magic spell. So let's clear the air. What does it actually mean to you, stripped of marketing? What is the actual real definition that you're working from of privacy?
So I'll start off on a bit of a philosophical level on what it means to me personally, and then I'm gonna get into the technology of what I really think represents privacy. So, you know, for me, if we don't take our privacy seriously, it will be stripped away. And with privacy, the only reason you want to be private is you want freedom of expression, right? I want to be able to express myself however I want, knowing that someone's not peering into that data and making observations on who I am, who I want to become, and what I want to say. I think freedom of expression is in danger. Um, and no matter what, if you vest a power in a group of people to determine what is right and what is wrong to say, it is inevitable that that will cause problems for our society to grow and develop. Sometimes divisive ideas are needed to build a better future, but if you vest that power in somebody else to decide if that's wrong to say or right, I think that's just asking for a world that I don't want to live in, and I don't want to see future generations live in. So philosophically, that's why I've always loved being into privacy, and of course cryptography, because that is the root of privacy, right? That's philosophically why I got involved. And on a technological sense, privacy for me is, there's two parts of the raw data you're transporting, and obviously your metadata, which I'm sure we'll dig into those concepts a little bit more. But in a technological sense, I want to be able to transport data without the fear of somebody else seeing that data besides its intended recipient. Um, and I think we lost sight of that trying to scale very quickly in passing data and how quickly we can get that data from point A to point B. I think we lost sight of actually keeping that private.
Mm.
And, especially on the consumer privacy level, we've got great corporate privacy solutions because corporate data is seen as, very valuable. and dangerous. But on the consumer level, we've really gotten the short end of the stick where they're like, well, you sell your data anyway to us on social media. You don't care if we see everything about you.
Hmm.
And I think people are waking up to the fact where they're like, no, I do, because you're targeting advertisements at me. You're trying to make me into someone that you want me to be instead of who I want to be. And so they're realizing that by getting that back, they can freely express themselves and be who they want to be.
That's a really interesting perspective. I haven't thought of it like that before. I've never heard someone express it like that. But the being targeted means someone is making you into who they want you to be, and it limits your freedom of expression. It's a great point.
Exactly. And that's where cryptography is the only way out of that, where people can have their data ownership back and they can decide what information they want to share, what they want to hold back, and have private ways of communicating with people. So, that's
Yeah,
why I recommend.
many people think they're private, I think, because their messages are encrypted. But if someone can look at who they talk to, when and how often, really you have the whole story right there. Even if you don't have the content of that conversation, that metadata is still the leak that nobody wants to talk about. What do you think about that?
So that is the dangerous thing with metadata is a company doesn't necessarily need to know who you are. They want to build a profile around you and they can determine who you are based on that profile. And all it takes is metadata from a number of sources. For instance, when you send messages. So they want to figure out kind of who you are, build a profile on you. They're going to look, okay, what time are they sending these communications? If it's say 8 to 5 PST, but it's something like 1 to 8 a.m. or midnight to 8 a.m. in Thailand time, they're going to say, well, I assume this person
Mhm.
is from the West Coast. And then they'll try and assume things like gender, age, and try and build this profile around you. And once they have that, they can reasonably start guessing about you to figure out deeper insights into who you are. And that's the danger of metadata is they don't necessarily need the core information. They need to generate a profile, and from there, they can guess at the rest. Um,
That's scary. That's a scary thought.
it is, especially because both me and you probably have profiles out there. I know
Mhm.
I do. That's why I deleted all my social medias. I'm like, you're trying to guess who I am, and you're getting pretty darn good at it. So you know
Right.
what? I don't like this.
I
You
had
know,
that problem when I was preparing for this interview. I looked for information about you online and I couldn't find it. So I had to ask you backstage a couple things about you because you've been successful at kind of removing a lot of your public profile.
well, and it's funny. There's a bit of a story to that. So uh, I when I was about I think 13 or 14 or something, that's when Facebook was starting to be big. And I went to my dad and I'm like, "Hey, I got a Facebook profile so I can chat to my friends and stuff." And he was like, "Don't put your real birthday, don't put your real name, don't put any real information on there." He was in technology, so he knew exactly what they were doing. Where he's like, "Look, if it's free, you're the product, and you're my son. I'm not going to let your data be proliferated online." So I got privacy and security training
Uh-huh.
um, from basically when I had just started using it. So it's been very integral to how I think about how I use online, how I interact
Mhm.
with people socially. Um,
And here you are today. I think that
yep,
might have set you on that path.
exactly. So there is a story with that where I'm like, no data online. It's just going to be used to build a profile on me. So why
Your
bother?
dad was very forward thinking. So, I mean, you got into crypto in 27. You were interested. Crypto infrastructure is not obviously in the same boat, in the same category as as blockchain, right? So, or as privacy, I should say. So, what was the moment when you looked at these two things and said, okay, these have to go together and I'm going to build it? Was that an insight, or was there a problem you ran into that prompted that thought?
It was a little bit of both. Like, I it was a little bit of both. So it was one, I had operated in crypto for a while. I used things like Telegram, MetaMask, Phantom, little dexes, like all sorts of applications. But the most I used was Telegram for communications, and obviously my wallets for paying employees, accepting money for jobs, and I'm from that philosophical point of view, I was like, why don't I have them in one app? It would be much better because then I could just send a payment request, to the person that was hiring me, and also I would have to sometimes pay people on PayPal and stuff. So the amount of hops and skips between applications I had to do was ridiculous. And I'm like, what if I had one application where I could uh, talk and arrange a job? I can get paid. I could pay, someone who I had hired to help me with it, and then we could put it on our own crypto cards, and I could do it in one central place, all protected.
Mm-hmm.
And then while I was building equally, I was like, well, I'm using these keys for encryption, but if I just change the curve type, manipulate them a little bit, I could use them for accepting payments as well. And that's exactly how we use it on Cryptic. Your Solana, we don't do it with EVM keys because they're just a little bit different. But for instance, your Solana key is used for accepting payments on the Solana blockchain. But once we switch the curve type, we also use it for protecting your WebSocket connection and doing other things in app regarding cryptography. So we were like, well, it makes sense. They're great. They're both, based on cryptography on the base layer, and we just can use them in one application. Why separate them? So yeah.
Great. Good answer. Let me ask you, threat models age badly. So, what was a privacy app built to protect you from, or an app that was built 5 years ago was built to protect you from someone? Who was that someone? And who is the someone that a privacy app needs to protect you from in 2026? How much has that actually changed?
So with there was a statement by Sam Altman from OpenAI about probably 6 months ago, and the statement was, we are about to enter probably the worst period of fraud ever before seen because of AI that's going to be used for this. So phishing, for instance, has always been a problem in the crypto space. So obviously, we're trying to protect consumers in a couple different ways, both for their cryptocurrency and for their actual data as well. At Cryptic, we try not to separate how we protect data from how we protect your transactions as well, because in the end of the day, if both are protected, you're actually as safe as we can make it. So who we're protecting against is the user themselves of the application. I think a lot of developers in crypto forget that the probably weakest point in their security architecture are their actual employees, or are the customers
So true.
themselves.
Yeah.
Um,
Human social engineering is definitely the weak point.
It is. I use this quote internally quite a bit. I read security articles and everything, and I remember this one individual had asked, "Hey, can I hack into a Gmail?" And this one very astute comment is, "No, you don't hack into a Gmail. You socially engineer your way in. You don't
Yeah.
break the law. You make them open the door." And
Right.
and it stuck with me. It was just a little Reddit comment, and I was like, that is brilliant. And that's how we've taken those design decisions into Cryptic as well, to try and abstract out the complexity of crypto, and also try and look at where can the user accidentally break all of the beautiful security measures we put in place here.
Yeah.
So yeah, against themselves mainly. But then we always take post quantum into consideration to go, we're protecting against future threats that might happen in a shorter time period than we're expecting. And then scams, phishing, those sort of attack vectors as well, I think are just going to get worse as time goes on, as crypto does grow in size, where there's more global capital stored here, and artificial intelligence can proliferate dangerous technology faster online. There's a lot of new attack vectors that are really opening up now that we have to take into consideration.
Yeah, very true. Going back to protecting users from themselves, let me ask you, the paradox of your work is that you're doing some of the most complex cryptography in the industry, and your job is to make sure the user doesn't really have to think about it. So how do you make something that serious completely invisible or bulletproof?
So, in terms of bulletproof, we aim for bulletproof, but there's a core understanding in security. It's never going to be perfect. It's going to be as good as you can possibly do, and try and iterate as much as possible to see weaknesses in your system. Perfection's a goal. In regards to abstracting out that crypto and making it where the user doesn't see it, a lot of people, when they think of cryptography, they instantly think crypto, which is cryptocurrency in our industry, which is really cool that we have this association. But the reason is because we never abstracted that out. We thought that people, when we said, hey, you can manage your money, be your own bank, we thought people would love managing public and private keys, seed phrases. They don't. They
No,
don't want that.
right.
They didn't ask for it, and we, because we have this very close association, people forget that crypto or cryptography is involved in your credit card, the satellites that transfer your information, your web browser. It's everywhere in technology. And what did they do? They made it so that you didn't see that. And I think that's what we need to do more in crypto, is realize that, hey, we can give people the benefits of this amazing industry, but not make it so confusing for them. I got started in crypto helping older investors here that would come to me and say, hey, I hear you're a smart guy with technology. I've got 10 Bitcoin, and I don't even know how to move it. I don't know how to plug in this hardware wallet. I don't even know what the hardware wallet does. I don't know what a public key is. And I would help them understand these concepts. But it always stuck with me, is this is wrong. We have
Yeah.
to make it so that these people who don't understand technology on this very fundamental level can operate here, or we're never going to grow to be the industry we want to be. Yeah, so for us it's easy because it's a guiding light. It's still difficult in implementation, but easy for thinking about it, because we're like, look at your banking app. Make a crypto app look like your TD or RBC or Scotiabank application. It must get there,
Right.
to get that mass adoption.
Maybe we're at the point now. I've been talking about improving UX since my days at Shapeshift, and um, we really haven't gotten there in the years since then. That was 2020, I think, and this is still an issue in the industry. So yeah, I want to see how you solved it. But going a little deeper into that, every product has to make trade-offs. So what's the one that you've been offered, maybe on speed or on scale or revenue, that you just refuse to make? And what made it hard? What made it a hard no?
You know, I have not changed how we do our encryption client side. Um, and honestly, that's probably been the most heated debate in our company. Is we are actually just about to experiment with server side encryption on our public chats, which are coming out here soon, which I'm very excited for. Because we really figured out we could not do client side encryption fast enough to get the speeds of our competitors like Telegram. We had to make this shift, and we chose it in a very good way where we did it with our public chats, where it's like, okay, it's technically, we call it public even though it is fully encrypted. But I think that's been the hardest one, where we've wanted to greatly increase our speeds, but we just can't do it. We just feel so strongly about having that client side encryption, just how it never touches our servers. It's fully encrypted, end to end. We absolutely love that. So, that
Mm-hmm.
would probably be the one where we've had active debates that come up basically every week on, should we do this? Should we stay how we are? Do we do a hybrid approach and experiment more? And I think that's probably the one I would pinpoint.
Do you think that that's going to continue to be an issue as we scale, as the industry scales, as your product scales, as privacy scales? Do you think that debate is going to continue to come up, and will there be a point at which you have to make a compromise?
Yeah, I think there's two kind of lines of thought that are very parallel. You've got a client side encryption, server side encryption, and then you've also got centralized architecture and decentralized architecture on your server level. And I think those debates are going to rage on for a very long time. And for us, we picked a more centralized approach for performance for our server level, but we kept client side encryption. So, while others who want to have full performance, less privacy, do a centralized architecture with server side encryption.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think between those kind of four options on how you can play your architecture and your approach, I think there's going to be a lot of debate for a very long time.
Right.
And I think people working on those solutions should not diss each other for what path another picks, because I think every combination in there needs to be explored to figure out what the consumer wants. Builders always think that their way they did it is the best, but I think everyone has to work together to make different solutions in there to see what the consumer wants out of their privacy product.
Great answer. All right, my last question for you. What are you building right now that the market doesn't even have the vocabulary for yet? Like, what's the thing that when you describe it, people nod politely, but they're not quite getting it. And in 2 years, they're going to be scrambling to catch up because they're going to get it. What is that thing?
I think the perfect example is what we have built with Secret Network. So Secret Network and Cryptic have been talking for a while about post-quantum cryptography, and they brought their secret VMs, their TEEs, to me and said, hey, do you want to build something on here? And I instantly was like, okay, you gave me some free credits. Yes, I'm going to play around on these. I love the concept of TEEs. Again, private, encrypted RAM, the attestations on code provenance, and also hardware integrity. I was like, this sounds exactly like something we can get involved with. And what we built is a post-quantum key management system using the secret network TEE. And when I talk about how we want to utilize it, so for instance, that's actually what runs our public chats for our server side encryption, but we've gone a lot further with it in regards to how we want to use it to help companies transition to post-quantum frameworks, because a lot of companies right now are still using Diffie-Hellman and RSA cryptography, and that is going to be in danger soon. But a lot of them are wondering, how am I going to migrate? I can't just switch and use dilithium and Kyber. I can't do that. We'd like to apply our technology to say, hey, you can run your data through this. We will package that up with our post-quantum stack, and then you can do with it as you will, and we'll manage all your keys for you, so you don't need to worry about building a post-quantum architecture. We'll just plug right in to your architecture, and you can go from there. And I think that's probably the most experimental we have gotten at Cryptic.
Mm-hmm.
um, as we tell people about that, they're like, I don't know what RSA is. I don't know what Diffie-Hellman is. I don't know where post-quantum's going. I don't know what a TEE, like, this all sounds really wild. And I think people are going to catch up the more that post-quantum becomes a threat and the more advancements that happen. So I think it'll take some catching up
Right.
to get to where we're at right now with that.
Post quantum key management sounds like a very, I mean, if you're in the space and you're seeing where things are going, sounds like an essential feature that, yes, I believe people will need it in a few years. So, what is it, Connor? Thank you for answering these questions. I've kind of lobbed quite a few fastballs at you today. So, thank you for catching them all. And I'm wondering, what else do you want to tell people if people are interested in learning more, or if they want to follow you? Where are you active? Just give us some information about how to learn more.
100%. So you can always visit our website at CrypticTechnologiesCo. You can follow us on X, Cryptic Tech App, for any of our new updates. And we are actually rolling out some really impressive features here over the next couple weeks, which actually concludes the alpha phase of our application launch. So this includes public chats, and our card program, where you can top up crypto onto your own Cryptic MasterCard. I'm very excited for those
Wow.
to roll out. And we're actually going to be migrating our community off of Telegram to be hosted on our own messaging platform, which, again, I'm just very excited to do that, because it'll kind of separate us from many other crypto communities that have their home, on Telegram or WhatsApp. We can have it on our own application. So it'll be a very proud moment for the company that we'd love if anybody new here listening to the podcast would join us on the application, which can be downloaded on iOS or Android today.
Amazing. I'm going to go sign up right after this.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for being with us, Connor, and sharing your insights and your stories. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. And this is Spilling the Tea, hosted by Lisa Loud from the Secret Network. And we'll see you at the next episode. Thank you for being with us.